got what you wanted, but you got what you need.
What up, world? Big Prophet jewel of the day. So today I wanted to discuss this jewel I call the power of projection. So when it comes to projecting, talk about how we project on situations, on others. We project our reality, really. There's the subjective and objective reality. And the way we experience life, we experience so much of our life in our imagination. The majority of our life, we live in our imagination. We can imagine the past, we can imagine the future, and we're in that moment thinking and living out memories in the past or imagining the future. I mean, I remember being with a friend and he was angry, he was in a bad mood, and he was arguing with somebody that wasn't even in the room. He was arguing with somebody that he was angry at that wasn't even there, you know? He was yelling, shouting, like the person's right there, like he wanted to, but they're not there. This guy is projecting that scenario into the present at the time, right? And we do that all the time. We get angry with the person that's not even there, you know? And that's how we live life. We live life not even present in the moment. Most of our life, we're not even present in the moment. And the thing is, we have to fight and train our mind. It's not easy to become present. It's a skill that we have to develop to become present. You know, that's why they got Shaolin monks that trained for years, for decades, to learn how to become present in the moment. You know, so we go through this loop of stimulation and simulation. You know, our senses, we receive information and then we simulate it, we imagine. Most of our lives are in our imagination, you know, our fears, our angers, our doubts, our worries. These are all from imagination. You know, so much of our emotions come from this ability that we have to imagine. Now, this is one of our most powerful gifts, right? Because that's how we're able to bring new things into reality, is our imagination, right? But I also want us to look and be aware of what we're doing constantly. We're constantly imagining. So I talk about so much of our emotions, but let's talk about love, right? We fall in love with not so much the individual, but our idea of the individual. We imagine all these different things of what this person is, what they mean to us, and we project onto them this image of our needs, our wants, our desires, our fantasies, and we fall in love with the idea, you know. And this person, we project all these different feelings onto this person, you know. But the person, the more they reveal themselves, that changes our perception of them. That changes our idea of them, how we imagine them. So then, the more you might learn about something, it might just shatter that image that you have in your mind, that imagination, that dream is no longer possible. It's no longer real. So that could be devastating, you know. And that's what happens in relationships. You be in love with somebody and then they do something out of character or not in alignment with how you imagine them, and then it shatters that image, that reality in your mind. That's a total different reality than what is real outside of yourself, right? So we create these realities with our imagination constantly, and then we project these realities like it's a theater, like a screen in the theater. And that's how we perceive, with our imagination, with our minds, you know? And that's how we see reality. That's how we see people. That's how we see situations, you know? So I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, and one thing they're really against was idolatry, right? Symbolism. That's why we didn't sing the national anthem or praise the flag or anything, because it was a symbol and it was a false idol, right? And they weren't against false idols because of how we could assign meaning to these images, these symbols, right? And that's an example of projection, right? It's like, oh, my father died for that flag. It's not really the actual flag he died for. It was for what it represents, right? But that symbol means that much to you that you're associating what you think your father died for. You know, it's a symbol of what he died for. It's not the actual what he died for. It might be this symbol represents these values of this nation, this ideal. A nation is an ideal, you know, it's not an actual thing, you know, and that's what he died for, right? For rights, freedoms, all these different things, right? That's what they died for. But this is a symbol that was assigned to have this kind of meaning. So that's why they had a problem with idolatry, because now this is an idol that you assign all these different things to, these values, you know, like they did in ancient Greece, or they would have the goddess of this or the god of that, you know what I mean? And that's what that is. Or we have teams, you know, people fall in love with these teams, and it's like, oh, this team, I love this team, and like, oh, you can't go against my team. And then we have this tribalism as well, you know, and it's just like we project ourselves and what we want, what we love, and what these things that we value, these ideas, these concepts, these values, we project it onto these colors, these symbols, these individuals, these teams, these groups, you know. Same with politics. It's all projection. We project these things, you know. We put meaning onto it. We put an image onto it. We put a piece of ourselves on it, right? And that's what it means, you know. And this is what happens when you project, you know. And there's good and bad in it, right? But we got to realize it's our imagination that's doing the work. It's not real, you know. So like, how do we keep this in check? But also, what is the detriment? What is the downside? What is the extreme of this? And the extreme is delusion, right? When we're not attached to reality, where we're not taking the signs and the proof and the evidence as important as the image or what we imagine in our minds. We letting what our projection or our understanding or our imagination, we're letting that outweigh the evidence around us. And that's when you become delusional. You know, if you can, and this is a crazy thing. There's extremes, and there's good and bad in everything, right? And it's like, yo, so there's a lot of geniuses and people that invented things or brought new things into the world that we thought were delusional because it didn't match up with the evidence. But there's a lot of people that done terrible things and are dangerous and not mentally healthy because of this delusion as well. So it's like, what is the line? You understand me? And I'll tell you what I believe is the line between delusion and mental health, like mental illness. You know, like, nah, I was right with mental health. Like, where's the line between mental health and delusion? Right? So the line is self-awareness, right? if you know who you are, and you're more aware of how your mind works, how the mind works, and you can determine whether, if you could challenge yourself what's right and what's wrong. You could challenge yourself and be like, yo, I'm wrong, and reel yourself back in, because that's a big thing. That's the whole thing about this, is like, we live in this imagination, we live out there in space, and then we have to reel ourselves back into the present, from outer space back to Earth. You know what I mean? And we do this all the time, like hundreds of times in a day. We're just out there, spaced out, thinking about something else, and then we're back to reality, back to the present, back to Earth. And that's the human experience. That's part of the human experience, and that is God-like gifts. This is God powers that we're blessed with. I mean, this is what God blesses us with. But this is the thing too. We're so powerful. Our mind is so powerful that we need to learn to understand what we have, what we're dealing with. We need to know and understand the power, so we don't, so we know how to harness it. Like one of my first jewels, it might be our first or second one, The King and the Horse. You know what I mean? And it was talking about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and was saying like, a lot of people, we go through anxiety, we go through emotions, and we're not able to control these emotions. But the conscious mind, if it tames the horse, the king is able to tame the horse. If it understands the nature of the horse, then it can take control of the horse. And the horse is more powerful than the person. A horse is more physically powerful than the king. But if you understand the nature of it, then you can tame it, and then you can control it under your will. But you have to break that horse. You gotta break its will. You gotta make it calm down. If you know how to do that, the conscious mind can control the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind. You know what I mean? But it has to understand the nature of it, and then it can reign as king. And that's what this is about. It's like once you understand how the mind works, then you can use your imagination and projection to your advantage, right? And that's what it's there for. You're supposed to use it, and it's a gift. It's one of our most powerful gifts, but you have to know when to reel it in. You have to know boundaries. You have to know balance. And it's difficult. Like someone like me, I'm a dreamer, I'm a visionary. I'm a person that just imagines all day. I'm an artist. I'm a creative, so I'll be thinking about things and imagining them, and I fall in love easy, and I'll be imagining like, a wife and kids, pick a white fence, and the house and everything. 20 years. And I just met the girl. I'm just like picturing all these things. So I just had to learn to not like to come back to earth and be like, yo, you just met this girl, you don't know her, and I idealize. I'm an INFP. I idealize. I think with emotions. Like, that's my cognitive stack. Like my first filter, the way I look at everything initially is based off of those things. It's off of idealism. So it's like, it's not easy. I had to learn this shit the hard way through a lot of trial and error. You know what I mean? So, but it's like, that's the only way to be able to live and control this thing we call projection. And then it's very difficult because you get into relationships or you deal with people and they project onto you, and that's been very difficult for me in my personal life as well, because it's like realizing like, yo, you're not dealing, this person isn't really seeing you for you. They just projecting their fears onto you, their insecurities, their desires, their needs, and they think that you're all these different things. Today they need a villain, and you're the villain. Today they need a comforter and you're the comforter, or today they need a hero and you're the hero, and it's like you're a human being, you're not ready for all these things, and you're just like, yo, I just want to be me, I want you to see me for me, but it's like, do you even know you? So it's like, what are we doing? And it's not easy, and it's not even about easy, it's about growth, and it's about progression, and you progress one day at a time, and that's all you could do. But the main thing is, like, try to learn, try to grow, give yourself grace and patience, give others grace and patience, and learn yourself, learn to love yourself. Knowledge of self is the key to everything, because if you don't know yourself, then it's very easy to become delusional, and not in a good way. There's some ways you could be delusional and it's productive, and then there's ways that are destructive. Everything has extremes, right? And there's a balance. There's good and positive, and there's bad and negative, right? So what did the Bible say? The Bible said the pure sees pure, and the corrupted sees nothing pure, and they're both corrupted. That's what the Bible said in Titus. So we gotta understand, our perception is corrupted by our hearts, by our ego, by our experience, by our trauma. This is an example of how our mind works. Like we distort reality. We don't know reality, we just know our version of it. You understand? And the best thing we could do is realize that. That's the most powerful thing we could do, is realize, like, hey, yo, I'm operating off of assumptions at all times. It's stimulation then simulation. I'm getting the information, and then I'm translating it into how I believe, into how I think, and that's just who they say you don't see things as they are, you see things as you are, right? And that's what projection is. So when you see someone, understand, you're not seeing them, you're seeing how you perceive things, right? When you're like, oh, that guy's an idiot and he's doing something, someone else is looking at them and being like, oh man, I made that same mistake too. You understand me? So it's like, who's humble and who's the idiot, right? Because we all been idiots, or we all been foolish, and we all didn't know. So, like, reflect on yourself, be more aware of yourself, be aware of how you're projecting on others, because it's a powerful thing. And also be conscious of the kind of energy and the kind of things you're saying to yourself about others or about yourself. You project on yourself, so it's really, try to be as positive and give others grace, give yourself grace. It'll improve your life, it'll make it better and make it more peaceful, and that's what the goal is, because peace is freedom, freedom is peace, and that's how love for others and love for yourself can happen, It's just, we get, let's break the illusions, and take power over ourselves and over our lives, and that's it. I mean, myself, Lord and Master, peace. Peace, peace.
You ain't got what you wanted, but you got what you need. Now you got what you wanted, you ain't got what you need.